definitely, we got the math.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the City of Oconomowoc Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. Happy New Year's, everyone. Has appropriate meeting notification been made? We have two committee business items. Would you call roll first?
Alderman Altman Cloth,
Oh, I'm up first.
Yes.
Here.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
Alderman Mulder. Alderman Shellpepper.
Here.
Alderman Kavieski.
Here.
Alderman Douglas.
Here.
Alderman Rozak.
Welcome, everybody. We have two committee business items. One is a discussion regarding state shared revenue, and the second is discussion on downtown restrooms. We're going to kick things off, and I'd like to have Jerry Duchesne from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. He's Executive Director. That is going to try to give us some information and is available for you, Council, to ask any questions about shared revenue. This is an opportunity to educate us all and to try to bring more things to the public. So, Jerry, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Magnus. Good evening, everyone. Before I get started talking about how you pay for local governments, I just want to do a real quick introduction. The League of Municipalities exists for a very simple reason. We're here to help you do your job, including the aldermen, the administrators, the mayor, everyone in city government, village government. We've been around for 125 years. Virtually every city and village in Wisconsin is a member, and we have resources, 2 full-time attorneys. We have resources like you can't imagine. If you have a question about urban B ordinances, I hear that's going to become a thing. We probably have background information on that. So don't ever hesitate to call me if you don't know who else to call. I will probably refer you to someone else. But my motto is very simple. I'm here to help you do your job, whatever that entails. A big part of what I want to talk about tonight and how we're working to help sustain this city and every other city and village in Wisconsin is reforming how the state helps pay for local governments. And I'm going to walk through about a dozen slides tonight. My one request of you, if I say something that doesn't make sense to you or you think I've misstated or you have a question, feel free to stop me. My job tonight is to give you information, to help you understand what is going on. The one thing I want to say about all of these slides before I dive into them is everything you see tonight may change by 9:30 tomorrow morning. We have meetings with legislative leaders to try to get something done in the current state budget process, and that is a process that unofficially kicked off today with the inauguration of the governor and the state legislature. So things are moving very quickly. I can't even tell you when. Mayor Magnus and I have been talking about the need for funding reform for 6 months. Our members have been telling us, with quite frankly ever growing levels of anxiety, that we have to do something. So we got together with the Wisconsin Towns Association and the Wisconsin Counties Association because their members are frankly all in the same boat. We're all struggling with having nothing but property taxes to work with, or principally nothing but property taxes to work with. You all know the impact that levy limits have on that process and prospect. And you're seeing more and more referenda, you're seeing more and more challenges providing basic services. The system has to be fixed. So we got together, and this in and of itself, this slide is significant. It is not often that the counties, the towns, the cities, and the villages basically do an all for one. We're in this together. We are going to fix this together. We're going to come up with a solution, working with the governor, working with the legislature, that will help local governments achieve more resources from a sustainable source that will grow with the economy as we go along. So that is our goal, more resources from a sustainable source that grows with the economy. Why do we need to do this? Many of you know this better than I do. Funding level for county and municipal aid in 2003 was just under $1 billion. Today it is $750 million. If you back that chart up about 30 years, instead of 20, you'll see that it really hasn't changed. I won't go into the long history, even though it fascinates me. Everybody else starts to snore. But Wisconsin has always had a state and local partnership when it comes to funding local government. The income tax was actually created to eliminate local personal property taxes. And the bargain at the time, and this actually went to a statewide referendum, was that the state would send 90% of the income tax back to local governments to fund the operation of local government. My point there is not to kind of point a finger, it's to illustrate that in Wisconsin, we've always done this in partnership with the state. But the challenge that we're running into now with county and municipal aid, another term for shared revenue, is that it's not growing, it's flat. And so that, the result of that, is an over-reliance on property taxes. For the record, no other state funds local government the way we do. No one else limits your options quite so much. Last fall in November, there were 37 public safety referendums. I realize there was a big one here, and there's still a lot of dust in the air about that. But what is happening in your region is happening all over Wisconsin, everywhere. Urban, suburban, rural, northern. It's the only difference, frankly, is the number of zeros and whether the village name is in French or German. It's happening everywhere in Wisconsin for a very simple reason. We're all tied to the same system. We are all using the same system of funding. This number, by the way, I predict will continue to go up. Every municipality will face this going forward. So what are we going to do about it? Here is a proposal. This is what the towns, counties, and the league have put on the table for discussion. And I want to be real careful how I describe this because what you see on this screen, I guarantee you won't become law on its own. There will be 1,000 variations of this before we're done. But what we've said is basically set aside a penny. Set aside a penny of the sales tax. You don't have to increase the sales tax, but set aside 1 penny of the sales tax for local government. If you do that, you can take away the current shared revenue or swap it, if you will, personal property tax, which quite frankly is going to go away this year anyway, and perhaps even expenditure restraint. That's $900 million. But our proposal would hold everyone where they are today and then grow you from where you're going. It would tie it to the economy. That amounts to about $500 million, rough numbers, in new money for cities, villages, towns, and counties. It's a sustainable source. If you look at sales tax revenue historically, it has always risen. You know, it bloops down for 6 months, a year or so, but then it goes on its merry way, going back up. We do need to take a look at the distribution method, the formula, if you will. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm not going to get into the rainy day fund. One of the other things, because legislative leaders are insisting that part of this partnership be, show us that you're being efficient. One of the things they want to talk about is consolidations. How are you doing this? Are you being as efficient as you can with local resources? Now, I realize that when I make this presentation, a number of local elected officials kind of can get their back up because you've been doing things to create efficiencies for years. Every local government that I've talked to has. And we need to take that into account. My comment on that is we need to tell that story to legislators as well. They don't necessarily know that. But there's also an expectation that if state government provides this, that it would be spent on core services, public safety, public works, things like that. We would also recommend addressing the inequities in the current shared revenue formula. I'll stay out of this region so I don't start any local fights, but take Neenah and Menasha in the Fox Valley as an example. Menasha gets about twice as many dollars in shared revenue, even though they're about the same size population-wise. All sorts of reasons why that is, but basically for 20 years, the formula that should float the shared revenue program has been frozen. The legislature just allocates the same amount of money year over year doesn't reflect your change in equalized value anymore, doesn't reflect the change in population anymore, and some inequities that were in that system have just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So part of a solution, you have to address those inequities. You can't fix them all. You will not get to this land of perfect fairness, but we can get a lot closer than we are now. Yes, Alderman?
So it's so illogical to freeze it. Why has it been frozen? Is there any rationalization behind it? Is it just politics? Like why do something so illogical?
I was not lobbying for the league at the time. What I have been told, and what I think makes a lot of sense, is those who were at the top 20 years ago saw that things weren't getting any better. And so rather than have the formula tinkered and have their piece of the pie shrunk, were successful in convincing the legislature to freeze it. And that's the way it's been for 20 years. It's been a problem no one wants to talk about. Yes, sir.
Talked about core services that these shared revenues could be allocated toward. Have those been defined?
No, not yet. It's a good question. It's a logical question. If I would define them, I'd define them as broadly as possible. On behalf of cities, I'd say public safety. I would say public works. And quite frankly, that's probably your budget. I'm guessing that's more than you get in shared revenue now. So that would more than cover it. The league will argue for the broadest possible discretion. In other words, we want to dump that decision in your lap because that's how local government should operate. Legislators will, this is not a small amount of money. So legislators are going to ask for accountability. What are you giving me? How are you going to prove to me that if the state invests $500 million more in local government, that it's well spent?
Tell them it's not their money.
I'm a lobbyist, which is really, I'm a salesman.
I get it. It's not their money.
So I'll be way more diplomatic than that. Yeah, we've had a number of local elected officials who would prefer a solution of a local sales tax. Well, maybe you like it, maybe you don't, maybe a county sales tax, but the point is, you control it, you put it to your citizens whether or not to do it, you are responsible for it, and the state is not involved in it. That has not been Wisconsin's history. That's just not the way the state has worked for well over 100 and whatever years. I don't think we're going to change that. So that's the formula question. Is there another? No. I would be remiss if I didn't forewarn you that there will be things in this package you don't like. That's a given, because we have a governor of one political party, two houses of another political party, dealing with giving a lot of money to another part of government. There's going to be a lot of give and take. There's going to be a lot of distrust. And there's going to be a lot of brokering back and forth, if we can reach an agreement. I can't even guarantee you that we will reach an agreement. It is a big ask. There's a big coalition working for this. And quite frankly, now's the time. Now is the time to do this. The good news is the legislators have heard the message. This gentleman, Devin LeMahieu, is a senator from Sheboygan, and he is the majority leader, which means he is the person in charge at the state Senate. He's the one that decides if something does or does not move through the process. And at an event about 3 weeks ago now, he basically said, that's a good conversation. Having a conversation about this is a good conversation to have. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos, again, the guy that runs the state assembly, said he would like to see that happen. Local government funding is on the table. Speaker Vos and Senator LeMahieu had a meeting today, and we have a meeting with the speaker tomorrow morning where we're going to find out where they're at, and We were warned we're going to spend some time in the weeds, which I think is a good sign. What legislators have been telling me, including yours, by the way, is that they're hearing it. They have heard the message from the local level that we have a problem and it needs to be fixed. And I think there is a fair amount of desire to do something. Now, I've been a lobbyist for 30 years. A fair amount of desire still does not get you to the critical number of votes and the governor's signature at the bottom of the page. There's a lot of work left to be done, and it's going to be messy and it's going to be challenging, but everyone recognizes the need, which is very good news. These are two of the people that are leading putting the deal together. Senator Felskowski has said in a public setting, she lost a very good friend of hers because it took an ambulance 40 minutes to get to his house. He had a heart attack and that was just too long. So she understands this on more than a dollars and cents spreadsheet level. And again, she's from northern Wisconsin. This problem is truly statewide, and those conversations are ongoing. I have an ask. I never come to a city council meeting without making an ask. And my ask is, please, keep talking to them. You know, keep the pressure on. Okay, I could put it in nicer terms if I wanted to, but legislators will have a very difficult decision to make. The state has a budget surplus, so it's easy, right? Wrong. The hardest budget is the one where you have more money than you think you need. Because if there's a $5 billion surplus, there's $20 billion worth of ideas out there. They will have a lot of pressures on them, and you're already hearing it. There's a call for a flatter income tax. There's a call for more aid for schools. I'm not saying any of these are not worthy subjects, but there is also a recognition that we have to do something about funding local governments. And I understand you're discussing a resolution tonight. That is, I'm not here to lobby you, but that is exactly the sort of communicating, keeping this on your legislators' radar that we need to see more of. If you have personal relationships with legislators, talk to them about this stuff. Some of the most effective connections are when you sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk through these men and women, many of whom, by the way, don't know anything. They have no idea what a TIF district is or how it's funded. They have no idea what expenditure restraint is. Local government is a black box to them. Senator Felskowski is an insurance salesperson. She's a broker. She owns several companies. She doesn't understand local government to that level. You do. Talk to them about it. So keep that up because we're not there yet.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So black box, they're a black hole. The unity of our local municipalities and providing statements of support is one thing. They get elected by the individual, not by the municipal bodies. So is there any way that we can create some kind of a petition from a local individual standpoint that we could throw down 15, 20, 30,000 signatures and say, get it done, or we'll find somebody else who will?
Well, again, let me answer that a couple of ways, and I'm going to try to be very diplomatic, okay? I represent cities and village sort of at a certain level. I don't represent individuals. So the league certainly couldn't do any sort of petition drive. That's not what we do. We encourage our members to speak. Any individual can can do anything they want. I will tell you this, the legislators are attuned to this issue. I think there's a tremendous amount of interest in this issue from the media. The public understands that there's a problem. You know, you and your tax bills, the referenda that went through here, that's happening all over the state. It's either a referendum or it's a struggle. I own a little cottage up in Marinette County out in a rural area. The rescue squad sends you a letter every year saying, could you please donate money? Last year they didn't ask for money. They said, would you please become an EMT? Because if we don't get more volunteers, we go out of business. So the public's there. I don't do that business. I'm not in the business of petitions, things like that. I'm not going to say any voice added to the process isn't going to help either.
So council, if there are any comments, again, it's very casual, jump in, anybody, well, we have Jerry here with us, so.
How did we end up with decreased shared revenue, even if the formula is held flat? How did that happen?
I could try to duck and weave or just
Okay,
admit
you're
that
just
I
not
don't
sure.
know the
Yeah, it doesn't-
answer.
It doesn't really make sense to me. I just, but I, so I. that doesn't
I
really
agree
stick
with
out.
you. It doesn't
Yeah,
make sense.
But other than that, you know, I'm generally supportive of this measure because it's an issue of fairness, you know, to me. I don't see why it should just be property owners in the city that are having to foot the bill for all these services. I mean, we've got a ton of nonprofits, you know, we've got a lot of visitors. There's a host of reasons and you know, so we don't need to get into the pontificating right now, but that was my main question was the shared revenue piece and why it decreased, and if you're not sure why.
Alderman Shellpepper, I can tell you why the overall number went down.
Yeah.
Because of Medicaid, because of school aids. There are 6 major funding programs in the state budget. Medicaid is the biggest one. K-12, I think, is number 2. Higher education is number 3. Shared revenue is number 4. Prisons, number 5. I am not here to say any of those are not a priority. I have retired in-laws. But I will say that 4 of those 5 have increased funding in the last 20 years. One of them has gone down.
Yeah.
And part of it, I understand there's someone in your audience that doesn't like it when we talk about sewers. Part of it is you all behave like sewer pipes. You do your job perfectly and quietly. Local governments have been making it work for 20 years, have been making it work. And I congratulate you for that. The problem is you can't do that anymore. You're running out of duct tape is a big problem.
Hey Jerry, I have a question for you. If this has been a problem for the last 20 years, where has the league been for the last 20 years on this issue?
That's an absolutely fair question. Last session of the legislature, when we lobbied on an increase in shared revenue, we were quite literally laughed at. So I would say part of where we were is we weren't doing a good enough job telling the story. A couple of things have really changed. The first thing is we have made a concerted effort to tell this story better. Why didn't we think of that 10 years ago? That's a fair question. We have to own that one. Second thing is the state is in a position where it can fix this. This is not an easy problem to fix. You're not going to fix it if you have a state budget deficit. You need your state budget to be in good shape, and the state budget is in better shape than it's been in a long, long time. The third thing that's changed is that I sat down with my counterpart at the Counties Association and the Towns Association and said, look, we've seen what happens when we go at this separately, and we have different interests, but we got to bury that. And so we buried that. We said, we're going to do an all for one, one for all. We're going to make a package that works for all of us. So that's my best answer to you.
Well, and I felt for quite a while that the league has gotten more political. Does that hurt you guys with dealing with the Republican legislature?
When you say more political, I hope you don't mean more partisan, because the league is a nonpartisan organization. We're you. I personally am not affiliated with a party. I'm not active in party politics. We are getting noisier, but frankly, that's because you're telling us the situation is becoming more serious. There are some legislators who are uncomfortable with that. So is that hurting us? I don't know. I would rather they listen to me and be a little unhappy with me than ignore me and think I'm a nice guy.
How many lobbyists do we have working for us? Is it you and do you have a team?
We have 2. Tomorrow we will have 3. I'm hiring another one.
And they're hired by the League of Municipalities to do the lobbying on behalf of the league for the
Yes,
municipalities.
we do not have contract lobbyists. We have in the past. I don't lobby full-time, but I do lobby. Tony Herkert, our government affairs director, lobbies full-time, and we are hiring a government affairs associate, government affairs specialist, excuse me, starting tomorrow. You,
Does that mean our dues are gonna go up?
no. No, you got your dues bill last month. I don't know if you paid it yet or not. I should have asked. No, the league is doing fine that way. Darn, there was a point I wanted to make.
We're talking about the lobbyist. You're hiring another government affairs person.
Yeah. You're dealing with 132 legislators, 90% of whom couldn't tell you what a TIF district is and never heard of expenditure restraint. What you do is complicated, and they have 1,000 other things on their mind. You need someone explaining it to them. That's,
We need them to care enough to understand there's a two-sided coin.
yes.
And to have state legislators who are holding that money because they don't understand isn't fair to the constituents that we serve or they serve.
And I would, first of all, give the legislature a chance. This is their budget time. The first 6 months of the even numbered calendar year is when they write a new state budget. So give them a chance to do this. Frankly, the state budget is in better shape than they expected by a long shot. But if they don't do anything for local government, yes, I would share your concern. The other part of it, though, is the city of Oconomowoc is represented by these people. The city needs to speak to these people. I mean, it can't be, like I said, sewer pipes. You can't be under the ground and silent. You have to talk to them and let them know what you need.
Any other questions for the council for Jerry? Karen?
So you've said that Wisconsin is the most limited as far as our reliance on property taxes,
Yes.
and that obviously we're looking for other sources and to get the state aid at a higher percentage or a different formula. But in general, in the Midwest, our states depend far too heavily on property taxes. If we are basically the worst in Wisconsin, are there other states that are doing other things that we can look to?
Yes, absolutely. State of Illinois has a variety of local option sales taxes. That won't fly in Wisconsin, at least not in the current legislature. Just about every state allows local governments to impose a sales tax. Sometimes it's temporary, sometimes it's for infrastructure only, but there are very few states that don't allow some sort of local sales tax option in addition to a property tax. There are also very few states that don't have any property tax at all, because the property tax is the old one. It's the one that most states, especially in the upper, sort of the Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, New York, Minnesota, Michigan, the old northern industrial states, we all have very similar constitutions. And property taxes was all they knew back in the late 1800s. Ohio is different. Ohio has local income taxes. They don't use sales taxes. They're one of the few states that do that. Minnesota, I'm going to go on too long. I'm going to give you one more.
That's why you have a huge group.
Minnesota uses a lot more fees than we do at the local level. When you boil it all down, if there's, people tell you Wisconsin is a high spending state, it's not really true. The overall level of government spending in Wisconsin is right about in the middle. We just concentrate it on the property tax.
Jennifer?
This isn't really so much a question for you, then I guess it's a statement in regards to the guest opinion that was put into the Oconomowoc Enterprise. One of the things that was stated in there, and I've heard it talked about, I believe it was at a Western Lakes meeting, that the state has a $6.5 million surplus. Or billion, excuse me, billion. That's quite a difference. Now, granted, billions are a lot more than, what we sit on here at the city. But when we were in our budget time, one of the conversations that came up about, Western Lakes or about Oconomowoc Police Department was we can't rely on those funds to fund essential services or, fund an officer that we have to pay every year because eventually that money goes away. Now, granted, $6.5 billion is a lot of money, but again, I don't know where I'm going with this, so just, it's the new year. I'm not, we're not. But I guess what I'm trying to say is if we're gonna say on the city level that we can't take money out of reserves to fund things, it's not fair for us to say to the state that they should fund things out of their reserves. So I guess that's just more of a statement than a question.
Alderman, and the one thing I don't want to do is enter into your local debate. That's
Well, it was
entirely
in
up
our
to you.
packet right next to your stuff, so.
But I do want to clarify one thing. That surplus is the state's operating budget. That's not in reserve. What has happened is their tax revenues are coming in far faster than, or at a far greater level. And we've asked this question because it's a good question. Is this a one-time coup? Then no, you shouldn't spend it. The reality is state revenues will stay at that level. And in fact, the reality is it's not 6 billion, it's somewhere between 7 and 9. But that is ongoing income that the state expects will come and keep coming in into the future. But it's a very good question.
Well, and what are the reserves at? I mean, that's at a record high number too right now,
Yeah,
isn't it? The
I
rainy
don't
day
know.
fund, I mean, that's like 4 or something, isn't it?
Alderman, you're the one that keeps asking me questions I don't know the
Oh,
answer
well,
to.
it's okay,
But
but
yes, the state's rainy day fund is
Right.
at a level that's higher than it's ever been. But I just want to be real clear, it's not reserves, it's ongoing revenues that are coming in much faster than they expect.
Well, and in the same fashion, our reserves in our general fund, we can't use for operations. So we got to always keep that in mind on how we do business. Other questions?
That, to your point, is one of the differentials in reserves, whether it be in a state level or a local level. You have the ability to spend down some of those reserves and capital projects because they're not necessarily being replenished, but to allocate ongoing operational funding for labor or things of that nature, can't really allocate those funds out of the reserve because they get depleted. You're telling, what you're offering is these revenues are ongoing operational revenues that are exceeding the
Their
number.
forecast.
So they can be, if the formula is right and the priorities are right, that it's something that the local municipalities could rely on year after year for operational expenditures, such as public safety and Department of Public Works, infrastructure.
Yes.
So those are differentials and one of the challenges, I would think, not only on the state level, but the local level, is people don't necessarily understand how buckets of money are allocated and where you can and cannot spend those buckets depending upon what they offer. So there's a huge education curve, not only from our state legislators and our local officials, but our citizens. And when you have citizens that identify as broken, they don't know how it is broken.
They just
They
know.
just want it fixed.
They know it's
right?
broken.
Part of that is educating them as well.
Along that line, Alderman, thank you for bringing that up. Just one little story. There's a village, and I won't name it, in the southwest part of Wisconsin. The president of the village board called me up and said, we are having to borrow money to pay our police chief again. So they're past the point of tapping reserves. Yeah, the administrator's going, no.
I'm wondering why they're paying them twice instead of again. Wonder they're out of money.
It's, the situation's serious.
Any other questions for Jerry?
Are we talking about this resolution yet tonight?
Yeah,
too,
what
or-
I wanted to do is just make sure we were respectful of Jerry's time. I will leave it open if one or two people from the audience have a question for Jerry. They're welcome to come up to the podium. If not, we'll move on to our other discussions. But thank you so much for
I got
coming.
the police officer's attention with that last one.
That's okay, we'll cut the city administrator first.
Ooh. Well, in closing, thank you very much for your interest in this. And Mayor, don't ever hesitate to call. This is a quick drive over, and one of the things, the league has a lot of resources, and lobbying is only one of the things we do. And we just want to be available to you. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very, very much for coming. What's being handed to you now is also some comments for digestion. Our goal today was to try to get some Q&A with the League of Municipalities. When we started with all these op-eds and this communication, we reached out directly to our state representative, Representative Dietrich. We've also met our state senator, Senator Jagler, and they knew all the information. And they were also invited to come today or to send a representative. Today was a bad day because of everything going on in Madison with all the swearing in, so they were not able to attend. But they gave us some information, and we also put some comments there. This is for you to digest after the meeting. Our recommendation is for you guys to consider putting forth or adjusting or modifying a resolution as we've put in your packets. And what I didn't want to do is bring this to the council right away. I wanted to give you a couple weeks to really read it, do your own due diligence on this topic. But I'm happy to open the discussion if anybody has any questions or would like to discuss the resolution at this time. Jennifer?
Just one quick thing. If we knew that today was, the swearing in Madison and all of that, why did we schedule this for today if we knew they couldn't make it here?
We felt that this information needed to get out as quickly as possible, and that was a judgment call. And I take ownership of that.
Just for the record, I think that was disrespectful to them.
Understood.
But couldn't it be said that Jerry's traveling around the state to various municipalities? Are you not? Scheduling a lot of different things, trying to get everybody on board, so.
This could have been brought up months ago, and it wasn't. And it was brought up in part because I think we have a lot of people in the community who are getting tax bills. So that drives the timeline a little bit too. But to your point, why wasn't it being addressed 20 years ago? It wasn't as broken as it is today. We tend in government not to fix stuff until it's broken. It's broke. So let's fix it.
For the council to know too, we met with Senator Jagler, we met with Representative Dietrich, myself, Lori, and Mark, and we talked about them with our budget. And we told them where these things were going, that we were going to be okay, but this is it's hitting a lot of other communities, and very soon it will hit us. So we met with them face-to-face in September. And then all the communication, they were given an advance notice, and I reached out to them before anything was put in the public forum and told them what we were doing and why we were doing it. So I think that we did a good, respectful way to move this process forward. We also didn't start this discussion under the advice of the league to wait until well after the elections. So that's why we didn't bring this forward aggressively to you this past summer. That again was a judgment call. But the recommendation from the lobbyists was to wait, get through the elections, get into the new year, and to bring it forward. But that's the process that we did. That's a timeline that we did. And we're going to meet. I've talked to our state representatives. We're going to meet with them in Madison. We've already met with them in September. So I think that we've done the process the right way. Could it always be done better? Yeah. There's always opportunities to do it better, but I think we did the best we could in the timeline we had with the backup and the recommendations that were made. But I respect that. Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, as the resolution, I do have a couple potential changes I want us to maybe consider.
Great.
But before we do that, I guess, do we think that as a council, doing an additional resolution is something we need to do or should do? I think to Jerry's point, which was well taken, is, contacting our legislatures directly versus issuing, this may be the best. If Barb and Jagler hear from us, each one of us, and then, we tell the people we know in the town or wherever, also they should call them, I think that would maybe have more effect. I'm not necessarily opposed to the resolution, but I also don't know personally whether or not I really want the state making those taxing decisions. So the state can giveth and the state can taketh away. So if they change the formula and they continue to take income taxes at the level they're taking in sales taxes, and then they decide how they're going to give that back to us, that continues to put us completely at the behest of the state government. And what priorities become, their issue. So is their priority this year for schooling? Maybe. Maybe next year their priority is something completely different than what we need. I personally think we should be pushing the state to just reduce income taxes, and then giving us the ability to raise taxes as we see fit or need to fund our community, and then we're held accountable. To me, that's the better solution. This nonsense of letting the state take all our money and then decide how they're gonna, what pennies on the dollar they're going to give us back is basically a fool's errand. But with that being said, I think the resolution we should take out, if we do the resolution, we should take out the beginning of right at the title, it says a bipartisan solution. I think that can get, let's just make it a solution. I also think in the second whereas clause, when we talk about municipalities, what they've cut, I think in Jerry's slide over the last 20 years, it was bigger than 94 million. Wasn't it like 269 million cut from local aid? It's in his slide, so we should check that number. I think it's a bigger number than 94 million.
Okay.
And then in the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. In the fifth whereas clause, we have a line that says like police protection, fire suppression, emergency medical services. That doesn't kind of read right. It should probably be fire protection, comma, emergency medical services. Those are just some of the changes I thought we should make to kind of make it a little bit more clear. Try not to be charged at all, because at the end of the day, what's going to come out of the legislature is going to be likely a partisan bill because it's Republican controlled. So I don't know that we need to charge anyone up with that language. Again, I don't know that I'm completely supportive of this, although it's probably a good step in the right direction.
Okay. I think I need to get an impression is we want direction, staff wants direction. If you want to move forward on the resolution, we have some comments here for some changes that seem very, 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 very good changes. You'll also notice, because one comment you made will just give us our tax money back. I frankly agree with that. If you look at the op-ed, that's one of the options too, is just give us our money back. But I think Jerry said it very well, is that we may not be really happy with their final end result, but the question is, do we want to not move this forward with a resolution and just say, hey, call everybody? Or do you want us to tweak the resolution, think about it a little bit more at home, give some feedback to Mark, and we'll change the resolution as you guys see fit? But I think we just need direction. Alderman Spiegelberg.
You want to table it? I was going to say, I like the idea of the resolution with the changes that Alderman Rozak brought up. I think it gives us a voice through the resolution. It doesn't do anything legally, of course, but it gives us a voice for our constituents through this resolution, so.
Okay. Lou?
I'd like to table it and then bring it up again when we have the ability to kind of noodle on it a little bit. I'd like the wording in there that let us keep our money. I don't need them keeping it and then using it as a lever of control. So I think the wording of the resolution is important, because if that's what we are presenting as the city of Oconomowoc, it should be spot on.
Well, then I have a suggestion then for that. In that last whereas clause, then we say the state should either reduce sales or income taxes or reinvest a portion of sales and income tax revenue. I mean, that's really what we're kind of pushing towards, which is, I would rather have that more control. I'd rather have that money back in our pockets. And maybe we add another clause to talk about giving us the ability not be levy restricted in certain areas, potentially. So there could be a whereas clause where we say, I think we should be levy restricted in some things, but for instance, fire, roads, police probably shouldn't be levy restricted. We should be able to raise levy on those areas as needed, and that should be our discretion. That's just another, I don't have that language I just thought about it as we're talking.
I think it'd be, I guess I think it's better to kind of stay broad, and these are the general goals that we're trying to accomplish. And I still don't see how the reducing income taxes helps share the burden. It doesn't at all. It still makes myself and all the other property owners in the city pay it. So that's the inherent issue that I'm running up against with the property tax issue. That's why the state steps in. We're not allowed to impose a local sales tax. We don't have any other revenue sources, so that's why I, support the shared revenue increase. And it's not gonna be the backbone of our funding, I don't believe by any means.
Just some help.
But it certainly is. And I think, and here's the other piece, we are in good shape compared to a lot of other communities in Wisconsin that have zero net new construction. So, those are the people we need to stick up for and fight for too. We can't just think about ourselves.
But I think what we're really fighting for is a future and what can potentially happen to us as well, which is not too far down the road, especially when you start looking at road maintenance and road construction, some of those items. So what I think I'm hearing is that you guys are good if we table this. Please give all of your feedback as soon as possible, at least by the middle of next week, to Administrator Fry. And then we'll craft something, try to put in some of those changes. That gives you plenty of time to read everything. Also on this, maybe take a picture with your phone. Tony and Jerry are great to work with. All their contact information, they're very receptive. So if you have questions, contact them as well, and then we'll go from there. Are you guys good with that?
I'll send out the information, everybody.
Okay, yeah, we'll send it out. Great. So I'd like to move on, and thank you very much, Jerry. We appreciate it. Thank you for coming. I'd like to move on to our next item, was a discussion of the downtown restrooms. Mr. Hepner. Yeah.
You can start out.
I'll be happy to talk about anything with restrooms, portos, permanent, but it's not actually my question. So what would you like to know?
So this was brought back to the council. 2 council members asked to bring this back and to have an open discussion on restrooms downtown. So this is again an open discussion, and the question for the staff is, give us directions. Do you want to go as one direction, to go to a different direction? A lot has been talked about with downtown restrooms. We are to a point now where the Rockwell building is in process and moving forward. So that is, the facts of what's going on there. So our hope was to have this as an open forum. We've also asked the downtown business district president to share the views of the downtown business owners, which is not just for the owners, but also for all the visitors and the people that come to our community. So this is an open discussion. Our goal is to try to find out what would you like as council for staff to do to pursue this, not pursue this. We just would like direction. So we've talked about a lot of things. Do you want to give a brief overview
Sure.
of all the different things we've
The
discussed?
recent past history, we spent some time and money on Village Green restrooms exploration in concert, kind of at the same time as the Rockwell condos, kind of seeing where that went. So the Rockwell condos now are in play. I'm guessing you're probably a good 1.5 to 2 years, though, from those restrooms being open to the public. So it probably will serve most of the need. So that's certainly number one. I guess you can talk about, is the Village Green completely off the table? I think it's been forgotten about, but I think you can make that decision. There's been talk about City Hall, converting some of that into restrooms. There's talk about other things. Also in the short term, talking about actual porta potties or nicer porta potties, which we've done some research in cost, but they are expensive. So those are trailers, I'll say trailers. They do make some accessible. My main concern with those is if you've seen them at like a PGA tournament, they're trailers, but they're up steps. So they're not accessible for the most part, but those can be done. You need some electricity and some water. It makes it a nicer experience. Or do you want just some more portos in the meantime? So I know Sarah's been very interested in a big piece of talking about this conversation, so she might want to explain or the downtown. I think we've had this conversation. The council agrees there needs to be some restrooms downtown to help out the whole situation, whether it's merchants, festivals, day-to-day walking, et cetera. But where that goes, I guess that's where the discussion will be.
Sarah, would you like to just come up and share your viewpoint, and then let's open it up for discussion?
Craig, real quick, Craig. Cost on upgraded porta johns? Thank you.
I don't have this on a slide, but it's just pictures of what the trailers could be. So I have 2 different cost estimates. One was for, well, it comes out to about $5,200 a month. Another one comes out to a little more than that, actually.
Now, were they willing to do long-term rentals, though? Sorry, I didn't ask.
Yes.
Didn't raise my hand.
Yes, they can. So we just got some more information. I'll use my phone, trying to be one of those hipsters. And this is for a 2-stall or a 4-stall. They're at $1,600 or $1,900 a week. They could do it for a long term, a year or 2 years, and maybe get a little discount. But I'll give you the comparison. A regular porta potty would be about $150 to $180 per month. This is $1,600 per week. So $6,400. Yeah, so there's a big, big, big difference between providing some porta potties. Right now, we only have the one that's near the boat launch at Fowler in the downtown area. So we could provide some other ones, at least to service that, but that's some of the costs that get involved.
Alderman Ellis? My question is, where do we get our porta potties now?
We're actually just changing the contract with a new company called LRS. But
And
we've
how
been
much
with
is the LRS costing us on a weekly basis or a monthly? What is it?
per porta potty about $150 a month.
Okay, why can't we just stay with them until the Rockwell
Well, I think we're talking.
is resolved or is opened, and then our questions have been answered? I
Well, I
don't
think they're-
understand why we have to spend $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $7,000 for something that's temporary. I don't get it.
I think that's your decision for sure. The question is, do you want additional porta potties? Right now, there's 0 at Village Green. So if you want to invest in 1, 2, or 3, something like that, not to cover all the big special events, but at least day-to-day operations, that's one step. There's been talk about exploring, because porta potties have a certain connotation to them. So do you want a nicer one that has flushing toilets and running water versus what you normally get with a porta potty? So that's the next level. That's why we've investigated that.
But you
That-
see, this is temporary, and this is not something that's going to be around for 10, 15, 20 years. This is only until we can have a permanent structure. It's what I remember. I don't see why this even came, I thought we had made a decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, let's, instead of digging into the weeds of the dollar amounts and things like that for part of it, let's hear from Sarah first, and then Alderman Kavieski is first, has a question.
Okay, thanks for talking bathrooms again, everybody. Happy New Year. I think from the district, from the businesses, from the community, both represented here, we just want an answer. We never got an answer. So do we want, now that Rockwell's through, do we feel that there is a need for additional restrooms? If the answer is yes, then where? Then we would have to answer that. And if Rockwell is it, is there a temporary solution? Because Rockwell will not be developed for 1.5 to 2 years. So I think those are some of the answers that we're just looking for. Which I think we all just needed to come back around and say yes or no to some of these. So do we feel that we want another bathroom, another restroom area aside from Rockwell? Because now Rockwell's a for sure. We never knew that Rockwell was a for sure. It's a for sure. That's 1.5, 2 years out. The one porta potty is not enough currently at the Fowler Lake. So what will we do in the temporary? How will we, what's the solution for that? Inclusive of anybody that rents the Village Green or has an event on the Village Green automatically has to bring in additional restrooms, which has not been a for sure. So that's for events, but regular population, and if we're gonna delay that even more, further down the road, maybe we want to see what Rockwell does. That's another, how long is that time frame of evaluation time? I think it's time that we can kind of put some of those key pieces in there so that we can answer to the businesses and the community.
Thank you. Alderman Kavieski.
So, to Alderman Ellis's point, we've been reviewing this for quite some time. I've been part of that since 2019.
Sure.
I would very much support additional public bathrooms behind City Hall, That was one of the topics that was discussed when the police department moved to the public safety building, is what that space could provide for. Makes sense to me that bathrooms on that side of the Village Green activity, as we try to carry the success of the downtown into the East Wisconsin corridor, take shape. The efforts to create the Oz Plaza and the ability to have access to that from that Oz Plaza as well as from the parking lot makes a lot of sense. To me, there is, to a monetary standpoint, one of the drivers to this was a carryover for many, many years that started out at $300,000, and I think we're now down to like $270,000 because we did some engineering associated with what could have gone on the green. But that 270 would be a good investment, in my opinion, in the bathrooms that I think are needed, even with the Rockwell development, to satisfy major events and continued activity toward the launch. So I would support that wholeheartedly. I understand that the downtown Oconomowoc Business District may have some funds that may be available to help incentivize that, because there is a need. As a resident of the city of Oconomowoc, I would like to see that as well. As somebody who has kids, who has elderly in-laws, all of that is a high-use area. So I think the discussion is, how quickly could we do bathrooms behind City Hall? And that may be driving some of the temporary need for bathrooms to eliminate some of the undue stress and use of bathrooms in the downtown businesses that aren't receiving business from those using the bathrooms. And that's been a big part of the concern as well.
Alderman Mulder?
I'm pretty much ditto there. I think that that's the right place to take a look. I had been in support of putting them on the Village Green as well. I think that's a non-starter, but I still think there's the need for the bathrooms more than that, and that's got to be close to a quarter mile away from, at least 300 yards away from Fowler, or where it's going to be in the Rockwell. So I think that it's an appropriate amount of further away in different uses within the community that's going to be down there by people visiting Oz Plaza or people coming off the kayak or fishing there. It's certainly on the walking path that people take around the lake as well. So I'm in favor with Louis taking a look at that and seeing what that footprint could provide us, and if it could be quickly before even having Rockwell completed would be great.
Alderman
As far as
Spiegelberg?
porta potties are, I mean, they're a necessary evil. They don't really help small families in a meaningful way. So I mean, I think it's a fine Band-Aid, but a long-term solution is not having porta potties in our downtown area.
I also like the idea of the porta potties over by Oz Plaza, and just as far as the timing, we're looking to have the whole Oz Plaza come to fruition in the summer of 2024, which would be the next anniversary for the Wizard of Oz. That would be about the time when the Rockwell bathrooms would be done and be used. We can talk about this and try to tie this in with the whole thing. Obviously, these things take time, they need to be designed, et cetera. So I still think we're looking at, what do we do in the interim? What do we do in the interim between now and a year and a half or 2 years? Something temporary has to be done.
Alderman Altman-Cloth?
Karen just took what I was going to say. So,
Okay.
I think I've been pretty vocal from day one. I'm not in support of the Village Green bathrooms, knowing that the potential for Rockwell was great and there was no need for 2 bathrooms right there. I would love to see what the numbers would be to put them in on City Hall. I think to kind of anchor the 2 ends of our downtown is perfect. But I agree with you, especially coming into next summer. I remember driving by here, it was just like a random Friday. We had no events downtown, nothing. It was a beautiful day, and it was like, I had a question, what's going on? There were so many people. So, but I will also say that if we do have porta-johns, and I hope that our businesses respect this, that, a mom with a little kid is still gonna go into the local coffee shop and use the restroom. She's probably not
I don't think
gonna-
you'll ever get any one of these business owners that are
I-
not
and I agree.
empathetic to
And
that.
actually, I had a really great conversation with the owner of Hares Mobile. I'm very loyal to them. I always get my gas from them. was out running with a girlfriend the other day, and, you know, we're old, we had to stop and use the restroom, and
Yeah,
the
100%.
owner, I kind of joked with her, and I said, I'm not buying anything, and she's like, you always shop here, you can use it anytime.
For sure.
And I thought, you know, that's why I'm loyal to you,
Mm-hmm.
because of
Yeah.
that attitude. So, but I do agree, we do need something, as ugly as they are, I don't want to spend 6,000 or 5,000. We do need something temporary, at least by spring.
Alderman Ellis?
What she said.
You're
Okay.
old?
Okay.
No, 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 no.
You're an old woman?
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
I
think-
feel like an old woman today.
Oh, sorry.
What I'm hearing right now, I just want to try to bring this together and then try to close up. What I'm hearing right now is you'd like to, a council would like staff to look at some of the temporary options so we can at least move forward, you know, within a couple months this spring, so that we have something available for the summer on a temporary basis, but then also look at some potential long-term solutions. And from what I'm hearing is the Village Green is not an option.
And how else could we,
I'm just, if you speak up if you disagree, because we need to help direct staff.
No,
I'm sorry, Alderman Kowalski was first.
Oh. Here's my hand
It's
right
me
away.
so
You're
much.
always
He's
going
only got
first.
4 more months of that, don't worry.
So I think what you said is correct. Staff needs direction, the city hall exploration, and timing is of essence. So if we're gonna put porta potties, we already have a place where we have a porta john. We could probably put a couple more in there, and expand that temporarily. I know there's a lot of challenges with construction and all that fun stuff, but man, I think if this council gave staff direction to do bathrooms, legit bathrooms behind City Hall, between now and the time we would get that plan and the time they could be completed would be before the end of the year, I would think.
Well, we can do all those things simultaneously as we
Yeah.
look at the options. I don't have a problem doing that. I just want to kind of close up so we can move on to a
Would
council
be
meeting.
what I would like to see
Okay.
direction.
I hear you, thank you. Alderman Rozak?
Yeah, I think no to the Village Green. I think this was a good discussion to bring up because I don't think there was ever really final closure, which is why I kind of backed having the discussion. So thanks, Matt and Karen, for that. I think behind City Hall is the right spot for something in the future. I'm not fully convinced that we need another bank of bathrooms there myself, but that doesn't mean I'd be opposed to it. We've got money set aside for it if there's some buy-in from the downtown business owners. That makes sense. As far as the temporary goes, you know, porta potties are kind of ugly, but I do think that we had, I believe that during the Rockwell development discussion, he said he would put some money to help us pay for some
Yes.
temporary bathrooms. So
Yes.
I don't remember, I don't know that he's gonna pay, Douglas
$5,000
showed
a
me,
month, right.
$83,000 for a year and a half of the nice ones, but, you know, maybe they'll put some money in towards that, and we could get something at least decent there.
Well, I
So-
think if we can come up with a solution, then we can look at usage and location, because a lot of question is, what's the best location based on traffic flow? So if we try some of these other locations, we'll see how much they're used.
Thanks.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
and thank you very much for coming. I know you represent a bunch of people. We would also like to,
Just
Mark
glad
and
it's
I.
not tabled.
Yeah.
Like, we're a step in the
No,
right direction. We
we're
didn't table
moving.
it.
No longer a political topic.
What I would like to request
that.
is that you
Motion to
come to, if you can come and meet with Mark and I when we
Yeah.
look at some of these options before we bring it to the council. So if there are reasons that we're not aware of,
Sure.
then we can come up with maybe more options for the council to try to come to a direction.
Sure.
so
I'm
one,
sorry, yeah.
one, I promise, super quick
No,
thing.
no problem. Alderman Kolf.
How can we as a city also let people know that they're welcome to come into City Hall to use the public restrooms? I mean, that would, you know, even if it's just a handful of people, it would alleviate a little bit of the traffic. Because to be honest, until this conversation started earlier this year, I did not know that there was public
Yeah.
restrooms in
I
City
think
Hall
some
that we're able to
wayfinding
use.
signs that we've talked about
Yeah, just
put a
potentially, because
public restroom
ideally,
sign.
ideally, it's where the routes in that area is still gonna see a lot of traffic, no matter where you put these, Rockwell, wherever you put them. So we have to educate, like we do for everybody else for parking and everything. Yes, everybody wants to park right outside of Vino, because that's most but if we have to educate then where these bathrooms are, and they can close those doors and make them a little bit more limited to people if they have another place to tell them to go.
Sure.
Great.
That wayfinding would be good for not only City Hall, but the community center.
Yeah.
Most people that walk by a community center don't necessarily understand that there's public bathrooms there.
Right,
Good,
right.
good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very
Thank
much. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Kavieski.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. It'll just take about 2 minutes. (2023). Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
I would like to request that Jerry Wendt and the American Legion please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I fell asleep before the meeting.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Altman Cloth,
Here.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
Alderman Mulder.
Here.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Here.
Alderman Kavieski.
Here.
Alderman Douglas.
Here.
Alderman Rozak.
Here.
Welcome, everybody, and Happy New Year. I'd like to entertain a motion for the approval of minutes for December 6th, 2022.
So move, Kavieski.
Second. Altman Cloth.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. On to comments and suggestions from citizens. We're first going to start off with a special report to council from the American Legion. Jerry, would you please come up?
My name's Jerry Wendt. If you don't know me, I'm the commander of Edwin L. Jones Post 91 American Legion down at 130 West Wisconsin Avenue. The American Legion is made up of men and women who served in the military. We have about 300 and a few extra members. They've served from World War II to present day, the war on global terrorism. We have age ranges from in their 90s to 18 years old. The American Legion has 4 pillars that we use as our guiding principles, and that's children and youth, Americanism, national security, and Veterans Affairs and rehabilitation. So we support many groups in the area. We have 4 Legion baseball teams we support. This year, the Legion is starting girls softball. So we'll be supporting a girls softball team, and that'll grow over the years, so there'll be more teams of that. We have Badger Boys State and other things like the high school scholarships. We give 3 scholarships as the post, and then we also join with the American Legion Post 399 over in Okauchee with the VFW 2260 here in Oconomowoc and the Vietnam Veterans of Oconomowoc. Together we have another scholarship that we do jointly. We support the community, the food pantry, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, the Honor Flight. The Honor Flight flies the veterans for free, but each veteran, even if you're 60 years old and you run marathons, you have to have a guardian take you. So the guardians are charged $500 a person. So our post will support as many of them as they go. So it's an unlimited number. Some other things we do is Ixonia Baseball, Silver Streak, Lights on LaBelle, VFW 2260 has a golf outing that we help support, Wreaths Across America where they decorate the flags of fallen veterans, or graves of fallen veterans. At Christmas time, the Child Smile, and Veterans Park. Some services that we provide to the community are the color guard for the parades. We always are in the parades. We will do honors for any military veteran who dies. We take care of Veterans Park in conjunction with, again, Legion Post 399 over in Okauchee, the VFW 2260, and again, the Vietnam veterans. Roger Myers over here from the Legion, Post 91, he spearheads it, and he does a really good job. We're there every other week, taking care of it, cleaning up, and doing what we do. For children and youth, we really are, that's one of my big things, and we're concentrating more on that this year. We did a safe Halloween this year for the first time, and we had over 330 children come through the post and their families, and it was a really good experience. We had some members who were in their 80s taking care of them and things like that. So we really do that. For the schools, we really encourage scholastic excellence. We do speeches on Americanism, the flag and country. We're going to be giving school award medals this year out to all the public and parochial schools in Oconomowoc. We're not going to go into Okauchee because that's their area, so we'll be avoiding that, but we'll take care of Oconomowoc. And then we'll also have like the 4th grade students. They're going to be writing an essay on a historical American figure, and we're going to throw a pizza party for them, so, you know, for their efforts. 6 members of the Oconomowoc Legion participated in a panel discussion with high school students over that was hosted by Shorehaven this year. And on Veterans Day, we were in almost every school in Oconomowoc, both public and parochial, presenting programs or participating in their programs. And the retirement homes, we were there doing, again, more programs. National Defense, we support the police and fire departments in the area. This summer during the unfortunate drowning incident on LaBelle, the second one, we were called by the fire department, or the police department. I got the call from the fire department. Anyway, we have our bus, and we transported the 2 families that were involved in the situation back to City Beach, and that was, you know, something they really appreciated and the fire department appreciated. We're also going to be donating to the K-9 unit for the city. National Defense, again, like I said, we work on that, and then we support the veterans. We started a buddy check program. We have 220 of our members that are either calling or being called, and that's really a benefit to both the callers and the called. If If a person has a problem, we're going to try to work the problem. We take people to vote. If they couldn't get to the voting places, we had an individual take someone to Madison last month for a medical appointment. So we do that. If there's household errands that need to be done or something like that, we try to work through that. If we can't provide the manpower and the expertise, we'll hire someone to do it. So it's really a good program, and it seems that it's worked out real good. Again, we worked with veterans during COVID. If there was someone with monetary problems, we helped them out that way, and that continues on now. And veterans, the veteran hospital, they're always in need of money for things. And like at Christmas time, they buy little gifts to give to the infirmed. We also give them new socks, men and women's underwear. Those are the three things that they really need the most. So we help support that. We started a Blue Star program. It was big during World War I. The Army, by the way, captain, started the Blue Star program because he had two sons serving on the front lines. And it was big during World War I, big during World War II, Korea, but then it fell out of favor during Vietnam. It wasn't a supported war, so the families didn't want to fly banners showing that they had people in the service. But after 9/11, the American Legion started it up again, and we started it. We now have 13 families that have 15 members in the service, and we're supporting that. So if you know of anybody else, please give me a call, and we'll get them. And we take that pretty seriously. If there's anything that the Legion can do for the city, or if you're a member of any service organizations, please feel free to get a hold of me. And I'll try to work the problem and help you in any way we can. And that's really why I'm here, so I want to thank you for your time.
Sure. Jerry, on behalf of the city, thank you for the update.
Sure.
But more importantly, thank you to Post 91 and all the veterans, because you keep giving. And you illustrated that today, and that's just absolutely spectacular, and I'd like to give you a round of applause.
I agree.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Bef-
Go
Before
ahead.
they leave? All right. So, on some of our, I think they're light posts, we have the ability to do little banners off the side of those. I've seen, in some communities, they actually use that to highlight their American Legion and VFW members. I'd highly encourage, and I think this body would probably support, that we utilize that ability to display those men and women of both the American Legion and the VFW, specifically during Memorial Day week and Veterans Week. You can do it all year round as far as I'm concerned, but I think they inspire a lot of people in the community, and to highlight them in that way, I think would be very appropriate. So I'd like to see if we could do that.
We will
work with
write
them.
that one down for sure. Great idea. I have 2 blue cards for public comment. Bruce Naninger. If you'd please come up to the podium, state your name, your mailing address, and the city or village in where you live. And what we try to do is keep this to 3 minutes. We only have 2 cards today, so we'll be a little bit more flexible. So, Bruce?
I don't know if I can get all that information in the 3 minutes, but I'll try. Bruce Nattinger, 204 West Wisconsin Avenue, Oconomowoc. What else did you ask for? Like firstborn child's name? Or
Yes, you're fine.
Good. Hello again, everyone. City resident.
Routing number.
And also Chair Lake LaBelle Management District. Is that it? Am I done?
You're good.
Okay, very good. Later on tonight's agenda, you will be asked to approve a proposal to construct and install a fish barrier on the Oconomowoc River downstream from Lac LaBelle. The intent of this barrier is to prevent the upstream migration of carp, of common carp and other rough fish into Lac La Belle and replaces 2 barriers which were eliminated in the past decade or so. This barrier will be fully funded by the Lac La Belle Management District. We would like to thank both Jason Herzog and Mark Fry for their significant and first-class efforts to get us to this point. As you know, significantly reducing the rough fish numbers in Lac La Belle is a critical first step in lessening the turbidity of our wonderful lake and its return to health. Last visit, I informed you of the commercial fishermen we brought in with the assistance of the DNR to begin that step. At that time, we estimated the catch at around 80,000 pounds of rough fish, but we were a bit off. The actual catch is just north of 131,000 pounds. Wow. The installation of the barrier proposed tonight is critical to ensure that this momentum in the recovery of Lac La Belle is not lost. Thank you for your time, your attention, and gratefully, your support. I'll remain in the audience for this item to be addressed, should you have any questions.
Thank you, and also thank you for engaging the Lake District here with our council. Thank you. Next up, Tom Stray.
2 minutes.
3.
I already wrote down 20. The last time I was here, they were talking about toilets. So what do I got? I should be a plumber.
So Tom, can you still state your name and address,
Oh, yeah.
please?
Jose Manez, no, Tom Stray, 69 Happy Hollow, down the road. Interesting point there. I was talking to Mark today about that one. That wasn't even on my page here. That years ago, there was an alderman here that thought that he lived down the river, and he thought he could go up the river with his boat, so they took the original grates out, right? Took the regular grates out, and they laid on the side of that reservoir up there for years until Mark, how many years ago we put that new one in?
They were there when I started here, so.
So they were there, and so guess what? Walleyes, big fish out, carp went in. Okay, but anyway, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
And then, been an interesting year. First of all, I want to thank Mark Fry for doing double duties. I'm used to double duties. And Lou, love sitting next to you. That was a good thing. Oh, when you brought out the porta potties all the time, all my colleagues over here, you think we ever got a chance of being in the porta potties? We were in jungles. We were all over the place. So I never liked that project. Thank you for not putting it on Village Green. Now that I got my fun stuff out of the way. Look at Village Green. I wasn't a real big supporter of Village Green when it was first transpired. There was 3 things that I really liked about it. Was the fact that they were going to put bathrooms, and there's going to be a community area, and MSI doing the work, because they do great work. I really like that. Now, you guys weren't around with some of the developers that are putting this thing together back in the days when they tried to do a building back over here. Originally, we were going to start on the Village Green many years ago, and it kept moving. So they were putting this thing up over here on Fowler, and it almost passed. Right? It almost passed. It was a disaster. It was myself, Mr. Rozak, and Kenny Hero that basically were asking a lot of questions right down the lane. And all of a sudden, oh. And then all of a sudden the community got behind it. Stopped the swap. Moved across the street. Same developers, moved across the street, start building the thing, this is what we're gonna do. And then all of a sudden they want more. Parking stalls, all kinds of, they were in here about once a month, trying for us to change the whole design over there because it was there. Now, I was worried about what they're gonna do with the one over here. Well, first of all, the community room disappeared, and they're already trying to steal more land from me on Village Green. And I meant to be here for that meeting, but unfortunately, I've been sick a lot, and I was in the VA. And I had it all written up and I couldn't make it because, it always helps to put a little thing in there. So I'm just saying, watch out for these guys about what they're going to do next. I mean, someone told me that they only took about a foot. No, they took a lot more over there, So you just have to watch them.
18 feet.
I trust them about as far as I can throw them. And I guess I can live with 18 years in the TID, but that's a long time. So I was informed that it's guaranteed, that, it's backed up. But, any attorney, I was waiting for our other attorney to be here because I was going to spot him out. that they can win that battle against the city. So trust me. I appreciate the 3 aldermen that voted against that project. I mean, that was a good thing. I mean, I would like to have seen it tie and then see the mayor flip a coin. It's always fun to see that stuff. And then there's a little thing called property management. I was talking to Jason today. If you go through the city and you find some really terrible looking houses, they need to be turned in so they can go and get them cleaned up. When I was over in the 2nd District, I had a lot of them. We had a lot of complaints. And the city attorney went out and threatened all these guys to put money on the bill. And we had 2 of the places that I already was talking about burned down. The place on Concord, that was one of them that was bad. And one over on 2nd Street. That started on fire. Plus, on my watch, we had 3 homicides too. So that must have been a tough area I had over there. But but there's one there's one right over here, right down over here, right go out this road right over here. That place, you got to tag these things, and Jason will take good care of them, write them up, and then it's up to the what's his name that's over here. We talked about it today.
Archie.
His office is Archie. Archie has to go there and get them because they're a mess. And there's a few more over on 2nd Street. And I was,
So with respect, I just need you to kind of bring your thoughts together.
who, me?
Yes, sir.
Bring anything together? Hey, take them out of the sky.
I'm being respectful as a former alderman, so I appreciate your comments.
Okay, that's good. Well, then I'll quit. But I guess I got some more things, but I'll just say that, you guys represent the city of Oconomowoc. You're doing a good job because my first thing was going to be about when I got my Christmas present was a card from the city, I always say, with taxes increase. It went up immensely, but your part of it was fair. And my buddy, the chief, I was just going to knock on him once, but he left already. He knew I was going to say something. But just kidding.
He's right there. He's hiding out.
Bowen.
Bowen.
Well, not you, the other chief.
Yeah, the other chief.
okay.
He's outside.
That chief, he's a good man.
All right.
They're all good guys. But so that's what I got to offer. And then a lot of good comments out of you guys. You're doing the right things, except for that building over there. But, Schaefus and Schulte would be rolling over in their grave right now because that building was 1880. And Schulte, now it's nothing. Plus, it was a good bar at one time there, too.
Thank you, Tom.
Oh, yeah, thanks. And then, one quick last thing is, I bring it up, you guys are doing a great job, but you're representing the city, okay? You're representing the city. And this should have nothing to do with which party you're at, which is terrible. I went up to the school board and ripped on them the same thing that's going on up there. They're representing the school district. You guys are representing the city. And I'm going to start a party anyway, and I'll let you know when I win the lottery tonight. We're all going to party.
Thank you, and
Thank you,
Happy New
Tom.
Year.
Tom.
With no further blue cards, we'll move on to consent agenda items. We have A, B, and C in the consent agenda items. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So move, Kavieski.
Do I? Second, Mulder. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? On to committee reports, Public Services, consider act on Resolution 23-R3089, amending the budget, remember this is a budget amendment for the 2022 Peacock Dam Rehabilitation Project. All yours, Mr. Herzog.
All right, thank you. Yeah, just bringing a couple items to you for the dams and the work that we'll be doing and have done. So the first one is at the Peacock Dam this past fall. As you know, the dam had some maintenance needs to it, so it's been brought to you a number of times for design work, maintenance work. It's attached to a DNR grant, and the work that was described, and you'll see, and we talked about how the construction was to be put up a new wall in front of the dam. So what I'm bringing forward to you tonight is what we talked about is that the construction cost were exceeded the original price. And so what we're looking for is a budget amendment for this particular item, as it's going to, if you look at the summary, might be the easiest thing, describe there that this particular project, the construction cost was $163,646. I included the design and the grant application inside of that, and then the construction management, what was already approved through resolution. So this project came in over budget, $196,496. We had a carryover item for our budget as $165,000. So there would be upfront cost of $31,000 here that's listed. And considering that this item was a DNR grant and it was a 50-50 match, so the city would see a return on this of in the area of $98,000. So for this, recommending for a motion from the council here to look at funding this project for another $31,496 to amend this budget. And then with the hopes of this being a shared cost for the return, as the DNR has acknowledged this.
Questions from council for Mr. Herzog? Alderman Rozak.
Well, Jason, this is either for you or Mark. The original project was approved, and was that part of our capital spend, or was that?
Yes.
It must have been a capital spend, right?
Correct, yeah.
So was that, and that was a capital spend out of our normal levy funds, or was that out of reserves? Do we remember?
That was out of reserves.
It was out of reserves, okay. And the only reason I asked, because we're transferring 31,000 out of our unrestricted reserve, which I don't have a problem with for this kind of project. I was just curious what the original funding source was, so that makes sense.
Yep.
And I appreciate you coming back and talking to us as these things go over budget. I mean, that's
Right.
kind
Yeah,
of
I
the
think we
point, is so
discussed
that we
that
understand.
we, you know, this may or may not have been the first one that's exceeded the 10%. But the idea here would be to share those as they arise.
Any further questions from council?
Just real quick.
Okay.
I think where the money comes from is important. It is coming out of the unrestricted reserve. The improvements to the dam that are required don't have a levy impact associated with the spend. So there's a lot of activity going on there right now. I've seen some chatter on various social media and just interactions. I think it's important to know that that money is where it's coming from, and it's coming out of the reserves, and the other 50% is coming out of the state grant.
Exactly.
Alderman Ellis.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 23R 3089, amending the budget for the 2022 Peacock Dam.
Second,
rehabilitation.
Kavieski.
Any further discussions, comments, or questions? Remember, this is a budget amendment. Call roll, please.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
On to our next item, consider act on resolution 23-R3090, approving the purchase and installation of fish grate barriers to the Lac La Belle Dam. Mr. Herzog.
Yeah, again, so this is the next dam in the sequence of our lake system here, as Bruce has given us a great overview of the lake and the condition of it. This is an effort that the city is willing to partake with the district in the lake management so that we can continue the success of the work that's been already done. So put forth in front of you is a recommendation that I put together from a number of local manufacturers to build and provide us with stainless steel barriers to be installed at the downstream portion of the dam. This DPW staff will be responsible for installing them as we are maintenance. We'll continue the maintenance of that. So these gate systems will provide not only a barrier for the fish to enter the lake, but they'll be accessible for fish to leave the lake, as we've been notified by the DNR that that is a possibility. It also helps our crew as they're maintaining the dam itself. We monitor and fluctuate the level of the lake, which when it's fully in place does have the potential of collecting debris. So the gates, as they are above the dam structure, would collect that and be easily released.
Comments or questions from council? Alderman Shellpepper.
Yeah, I grew up, say this out loud, spearing, carp at the dam. They used to pile up on the metal barrier. There'd be so many of them. So I'm like, how does it really keep out all these carp?
So the structure that was there before
Yeah.
was on top of the dam?
No, like the structure that, so it was always there. It was like the metal
Yep.
grates. It's the same that you guys are gonna be putting back on.
Yep, the metal
now.
grates were
Right.
above the dam, right?
Yeah,
So these are gonna be below the dam. So the idea is that as they migrate upflow, as flow's coming down, they want to jump that dam, so the grates were always in place and they'd be trapped, if anything. The wood structure would still be in place. So if the fish are below, I guess you could still spear them.
just, yeah, no.
that what you're
right.
saying?
Well, it doesn't exist anymore. I'm just trying to say is like, we had these grates. I don't understand if is it a different grate that's being installed then, Mark? Okay.
Exactly. So
Okay.
the grates that were there before, as Jason was saying, they sat at an angle,
Right.
and they didn't let anything come out of the lake.
Right.
So that's where the carp built up. And so the grates that Jason has worked on, him and the crew, are gonna go on the downstream face of the dam.
Okay.
And
With
they're
the
gonna
thought that we're already cleaning the lake out,
Yeah.
would you say 131,000?
Pounds.
So, yeah.
10,000 roughly fish
Yeah.
are coming out of the,
So the new grates are gonna be gated, so that when the time comes that the DNR wants us to open them to allow the carp to escape out of the lake, we can open them up and then it's free flow through there.
So in other
That-
words,
that
they
makes-
have a
yeah.
season kind of like
Yeah.
salmon do?
So this will be a better design than what was there, but it'll be effective in helping the lake stay clean.
Is the electrical barrier ever gonna be reactivated?
I doubt it. It stopped working. The DNR has opted not to invest the money into it, which is one of the things that drove this to have to happen.
I think the electrical.
Because now they're
barriers have
coming up,
proven
they're coming
less
up the
effective
river,
than they
and they're
thought.
now able to get into LaBelle where the barrier kept them down there before.
Right.
So that's when they allowed us to remove those grates back in 2013, 2014, when we completely reconstructed the dam. We requested the ability to remove them, and they said yes. And now that the barrier has stopped working, they're starting to see the negative benefits of that in the quality of the Lac La Belle. So that's when they came back and wanted the grates back in, and it was very great of the Lake Management District to step up and fund that entire cost, because I didn't feel it was a city expense because the DNR's barrier stopped working.
Mhm.
But that, like I said, the Lake Management District, stood up and said, you know what, we'll fund it. It's a matter of water quality for us.
I don't understand why the state identified it as a need, previously. Maybe this ties into our shared revenue conversation, but now it's, left, we're left in the lurch. So that's why, how come, there's no action being taken on that electrical barrier again? If it's not the electrical barrier, how come there's, why was it identified as a need previously and now it's no longer seen as a need?
Yeah, I don't have the complete history of everything that's gone on there, but we do know that there's been negative impacts to the lake since the barrier's gone down with the grates removed.
Yeah.
It's probably, I'm gonna guess it's a lot more economical solution for the DNR to have these grates reinstalled back on the dam in order to protect Lac La Belle.
Yeah, well, it's economical because now,
Yeah, they
we're
don't have to pay
splitting the
for it.
bill. Once again, well, not the city itself, we know
Yeah.
that, well, and we are in the repair, maintenance part, going forward, but, and I know there's an issue in the lake, in the bay that I live on the lake, it's just filled with carp, and all you do is see is carp. It's hard to see a difference just from a layman's perspective, from now and 30 years ago, when I was growing up and spearing carp at the dam, there's tons of carp then too. So, but I generally support the measure.
I think one thing that might be nice, Jason, is if you could look into or contact the DNR, just find the history of why the electrical grate is not being repaired. Is it money? Does it not work well? Because that could actually add another layer of protection. Or do you know, Bruce?
Could you come to the microphone?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe we can get an answer, Chaz, to your question.
Again, I wasn't around at the time. I've only been on the lake board for a little over a year. Our understanding, we've discussed this several times, is that the DNR considered all these electrical barriers to be hazardous. And so they turned them off intentionally because of the hazards to wildlife and to humans who would come in contact or go near those barriers.
Okay,
So
thank you.
That's our understanding.
Any other questions for Mr. Herzog?
Chaz,
like-
did you ever get shocked by the grate when you were spearing?
Well, I was just gonna say that the grate never shocked us, but I know we shot some carp with bows by the electrical barrier before, so.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
I know all about carp and
So moved.
Oconomowoc.
Second, Kavieski.
Further discussions or questions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis. Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Thank you all, and thank you for the district for moving this forward. On to new business, consider act on resolution 23-R3091, approving the Lake Country Municipal Court budget for 2023.
We have Don Weber here.
Thank you for coming.
As chair of the administrative committee of the court, we've got the budget to present to you tonight, requesting your approval. The court looks good. We project the end of the year with about $400,000 of revenue. In November, we were at 385, so we will exceed over, I would guess, around 425,000 end of year in revenue. So we could end up with about a $50,000 surplus at the end of this year. Next year's revenue for court fees only is $392,000, and there's some other miscellaneous revenue, and we're looking at about $395,000 in revenue. Expenditures for next year, the largest expenditure is we're bringing back a full-time clerk. Previously, we had 2 full-time clerks. When the clerk retired, we went to 1 clerk, and that helped us because we were running about 2 years in the red, and we saved on benefits and that salary, replacing it with part-time. Well, now the court operations committee figured it was time to bring the full-time back, and that's the reason for the increase in expenditures for next year. And one of the clerks there may have to get health insurance, and because we're part of the state retirement, we're compelled to provide that health insurance at the percentage, at 50%. So otherwise, the budget looks good. We've got about $418,000 in the bank. So we're solvent. And we could probably afford another court move if you decide to build another police department.
Not in our lifetime.
Check and see if you're listening. I'm sorry.
Any,
And I want to thank our Operations Committee for the monthly oversight of our bills and expenditures and activities. And your Chief Pfister is one of the major parts of that Operations Committee, so.
I'd like to ask council for any questions or comments for Mr. Weimer. Alderman Kavieski?
Just a question, or not, more of a statement, I guess. And a thank you for the good job with oversight and bringing forward budgets that reflect the revenues and not having to look for additional monies to keep operations moving. You are a steward of the history of not only Lake Country Municipal Court, but the community. And I know you're piecing a little bit of that off. I saw on a social media post.
Yes, I'm selling out.
Sharing. You're sharing. And I think that's what I wanted to say is just thank you for sharing the history, not only with this, but of the community with your service. So thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Alderman Rozak, did you have anything?
No, just Mr. Weimer, thanks for, again, bringing us a good balanced budget from the municipal court. We appreciate it. You actually answered my question, which was, it sounds like you guys have 418,000 in reserve. So anytime there's a surplus, you just drop more of those funds into the reserves, which is great. And it doesn't look like you guys, one of my concerns with the move to the new police station with you guys was the cost overhead of the new space going to create us going into the red, and it appears that we've managed that well.
One of the things that really helped us is we went to the state's collection agency, and we've got 159,000 we brought in of prior debt. People that haven't paid their tickets for many, many, many years. They are aggressive. They're pit bulls, and it's reflecting in our budget. But damn it, the court is owed the money. So pay your debts, and if not, we have a good collection agency. So
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you for your service. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So move, Kavieski.
Second, Altman Cloth.
Did you get whoever that was?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
Seconded by Mulder.
Please.
Alderman Altman Cloth,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Next up is consider act on local primary election for the February 21st, 2023.
Thank you, Mayor. You have a revised memo at your stations, and I'm just going to go over it so the public can hear as well. The deadline for filing papers for the local alderman races, districts 1 through 4, was 5 p.m. today. And the individuals that did file paperwork for District 1 is the incumbent Karen Spiegelberg. District 2, the incumbent, Lou Kavieski, has stated he would not run again. He did that in December. And we have 2 individuals, and I apologize if I am not pronouncing the names correctly, Dorian Assam and Andrew Maroney. And District 3, we have incumbent Chris Douglas. And District 4, we have incumbent Kevin Ellis and Lori E. Muffler. And I see Andrew is in the audience and Lori is in the audience. I'm not sure about Dorian because I have not met Dorian.
He's not.
He is not.
Okay, thank you. 'Cause there's other individuals. Anyway, because there are not more than 2 candidates running for any district, council does not need to take action on whether or not to hold a primary. These races will be run in April 4th. And I did want to mention, though, that we will be having a February primary on February 21st, which once again is my birthday. I've worked many elections on my birthday, but anyway, it's for the Supreme Court race that there will be a primary for that. So just letting you know that.
Any questions from council? Alderman Kavieski.
Even though it is not a local election that is being held in February for the primary, it is a nonpartisan statewide election for the state Supreme Court. I think anything that the city can do to help promote the engagement of that primary is in the best interest of our citizens who may not take note of that or remember it. So anything we can do to help promote that, I think is good.
Mayor?
Yes.
I think one of the things I asked Mark to look into, and I believe that we're extending our hours during this primary, correct? Are we going to try to extend our hours during one of these primaries?
We had talked about it, but it was right during the holiday time, so we didn't have further discussion.
So,
But we've talked about it.
yeah, I know we've had some discussion and exchanged, so I don't know if we need council action on that, but the numbers for some additional staff time so that we can have longer voting hours is pretty insignificant. And one of the things we see, I think, around this area is there are certain cities nearby who let people vote in person, you know, from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, and there's people in lines voting. We close down at about 4 o'clock on voting. And what I was wanting us to do for the 2 weeks during that early voting is at least keep us open for another hour or two. Because if you're working, if you got to pick up your kids from school or they have school events, getting here by 4 o'clock to vote is just a non-starter. So I'd like to see us stay open till at least 6:30 or 7 on those pre-voting hours. 8's probably too late. I don't think we need 8 o'clock. But if you have other stuff going on that day, I'd like us to see us stay open. And if that means a budget amendment from the city council, let's do it. But we should give our citizens every opportunity to vote early, if possible.
So we'll have staff investigate that to see what the impact is and kind of take it from there.
We've
It
already had-
probably can be
Yeah.
taken care of by staff without having to come back to council.
Sure.
Is there anyone here that feels that extending the hours would be inappropriate? Okay, so we have our answer. Mark and Diane will work on that. Great.
Thanks.
On to staff reports. Mark?
Just real quick, since it's the first time that we've met since tax bills went out, there were some questions that were raised right away when the bills came out, misunderstanding or regarding the referendum and the impact. There's a lot of thought process out there that the referendum didn't pass everywhere, and then people were surprised when they saw it on their tax bill. So with the mayor providing the lead, we put out some information pretty quickly to try and educate everybody as to what happened and to put to bed their concerns that even though we were collecting additional funds over and above what we needed, and we had to do that because of the referendum, but those funds are being segregated and will only be used for Western Lakes Fire District expenditures from the city. We're not subsidizing any of the other communities with those additional funds that we're collecting. And based on Chief Bowen's phasing, come year 3, we will need 100% of those funds. So that's why we are collecting them. We're going forward, would like to provide some more additional educational pieces out to the public that we'll be working on. Lori has worked on one regarding revenue and expenditures. That'll be coming out shortly. We've been hearing a lot of questions about the TIF, I think with Rockwell and everything. Everybody's wondering, how does TIF play into the taxes? And because they know that some people aren't getting the tax money from that, so we'll be able to go through and explain that. That one there might take a little bit because we're thinking that that could be a good video opportunity, because we're trying to format the information that we're going to put out in a way that it can be on the website, that the alderman can direct people there, but it's also information that can be used every year. You know, we don't have to talk specific numbers, but expenses, revenues, levy limits, net new construction, those are there, and so we're going to be taking that on, and I just wanted to make you aware of that. And then one other thing, and I'll give Alderman Kowieski a pat on the back. He came forth, 3 weeks ago, and said, hey, I'd like to set up a town hall type meeting.
March.
Month? Okay.
March of last year. I was denied the access to resources for assessment, our assessor, March.
Yeah. But he has brought forth that idea, and he's been working with Lori, and in March of this year, probably at the police station, we'll be putting together some of that information.
I think that's set up for March 9th.
It
that
is
correct?
set up for March 9th at the Public Safety
Cool.
Building. At 6
So we'll
o'clock.
try to get that together so everybody has that awareness. That's great. Any other staff reports?
No.
Okay. Reports or comments from Alderman? Alderman Shellpepper.
I'll just thank the American Legion for coming today. I'm a proud member of the Post, and just, I didn't even know necessarily all the things that the Post is doing for our community, so thanks for inviting them and having them, and, you know, appreciate the guys showing up.
Great.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. With no further comments from Alderman, my comment was actually what just Chaz says, is Happy New Year. Thank you for the two folks that have put their names in the hat to run for alderman and alderperson. We really appreciate it. I think Alderman Kavieski said something really astute multiple times, is that a lot of the community gets frustrated about certain things that happen, but unless you get engaged or you put yourself out there to try to be either an alderman or on a committee, you know, it's really tough because you get to it at the end. So thank you both, and Dorian as well for putting his name in, and I wish you the best, and look forward to where our new council goes also in April. So we still have a lot to do between now and April. So please keep connected, please keep Mark informed, and if there's anything that you think we're missing, just let us know. Most importantly, Happy New Year, everybody. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Kavieski.
Rozak, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, great.